Today at Let's Talk Marketplace, we talked about
how to enter the Swedish market and why marketplaces aren't as popular in Sweden than anywhere else in Europe yet.
Our guest Amazon expert Anna Nordlander explained the differences of the Nordic markets
and even took us for a short trip to Japan. Have fun listening.
Let's Talk Marketplace,
the Marketplace podcast with Ingrid and Valerie Dichtel.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Marketplace. Great you tuned in again. I hope you're in the right mindset today to cross some borders with us. We'll be talking about internationalization and about a market you might not immediately think about. So, Valerie, are you ready for a spot of travel?
More than you know. I absolutely love to travel, and my last international trip was in February. So I'm going in, I don't know how many months, leaving Germany again. I mean, Gardasee is not really like leaving Germany.
No, not really. It's more like, front door of Munich.
Yes, not really having travel plans is feels really long for me. So I'm full in for talking at least about a virtual trip through Marketplace Europe. So where do you want to go today?
Well, how does Sweden and the Nordics sound like?
Okay, maybe in the summer, for midsummer, but overall, I would say not my first choice to go, but I spent my birthday in Sweden for some years ago. That was quite lovely. End of September.
Okay, so let's do a trip there from the business standpoint today. Okay, so no sunbathing in Sweden for us. Anyway, so let's welcome our travel guide for today, and I'm extremely proud to do so because it has been a long time the making. She's an extremely renowned Amazon expert from Sweden, a multi-company founder and a keynote speaker. And in March, she took the stage of the Amazon conference, the Prosper Show in Las Vegas, to talk about 7 ways to screw up your international expansion. So perfect for today. Welcome, Anna Nordlander.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here with you. It's been a long time coming.
It is, yes. It is great to have you.
Yeah, a warm welcome also from me, Anna. It's really great to have you here because we are already in contact for some years, I would say. And actually, originally, Ingrid pointed me on you, I think. And she was like, do you know Anna? You should connect. And I was like, no. And then we connected and I was like, yeah. And I'm so happy that we finally have you in our podcast. So yeah, I would also love to get our listeners to know you. And so I would ask you a few questions about you and you could just quickly introduce yourself with them. So who are you, Anna?
So as you said, my name is Anna Nordlander. I'm Swedish and I've been in the Amazon world since early 2012. So yeah, it's become a long time now. And I'm currently right now in Spain enjoying some nicer weather than the Swedish weather. So I would also be one of the people recommending you guys to go to Sweden during the summer, perhaps.
Good.
Who could guess that? What do you what is your USP in the marketplace business? What do you know best?
That's a really good question. I think internationalization has always sort of been my field. I was part of building one of Sweden's first Amazon native brands, joined their journey fairly early on. And we didn't have Amazon in Sweden back then. So going international was basically what we had to do. So we had no choice. And I've always, like you do, Valerie, always loved traveling, always loved being in an international environment. So I would say internationalization is probably where, my USP is.
Perfect. And would you say internationalization in Europe or the US, or how would you say it?
I mean, I would say in general, but the US, Japan also has always been one of my favorite markets. And then Europe, of course.
Great. So who do you work with? Who are your customers?
They differ a lot. I've co-founded an Amazon agency in Sweden, which our primary focus is Swedish brands. But of course, we're also helping some international brands there. So yeah, it differs a lot depending on the needs of the different customers.
And not even like one assortment or one industry that you're focusing on?
No, definitely not. I mean, we focus on brands that want to go on Amazon, so we're extremely Amazon focused. So I think that's where our niche is.
Yeah, okay. Right. So to conclude, Anna is the perfect match for today to have a nice chat on internationalization in the Nordics and other interesting countries. Looking forward to that in our topic of the week in just a few minutes' time. Before that, we will tune into our newsflash of the week. But first, a very quick word on our sponsor, Market Supply.
Hi, are you a brand, especially in the wine garden industry, feeling the struggle between working with a retailer as a wholesale partner or selling on their platform as a marketplace seller? Then Market Supply might be an interesting solution for you.
Yes, our sponsor is a marketplace as a service provider focusing on the DIY industry, and they promise their brand customers to combine the full flexibility of a marketplace business with all the organizational chill of the wholesale business. So what do they mean by that, Valerie?
Well, if you are a brand, a marketplace as a service provider, such as Market Supply can take over the full marketplace business for you. That means the brand decides which of their products they want to sell on what marketplaces for which price. And then the service provider takes over and does all the rest. They list the products on the marketplaces, handle the full customer interaction and logistics, and the full communication with the marketplaces too. So the brand keeps control on pricing and pick the appropriate channels, and the service provider makes sure that their brand's products are being presented in the best possible way on the marketplaces. The idea is all the benefits from both worlds with none of the hassle.
That sounds really good, but sounds expensive too.
Well, of course, the service provider takes a fee for their services, generally based on generated turnover. But building your own marketplace business from scratch isn't cheap either and would take much longer.
That's very true. If marketplace as a service is something that you might find interesting, I suggest you listen to our episode 53. There, Henning Hesen from our sponsor Market Supply was our guest, and he valiantly answered all our questions, no matter how pressing, on the subject. It's in English too, so check it out.
Yeah, and if you want to check out Market Supply, make sure to write Henning Hesen under the keyword Marketplace Universe on LinkedIn or per email. That will earn you a free onboarding to their service worth €800.
Righto, that was our quick info on our sponsor Market Supply. Thanks for the support. But now let's go over to the most important marketplace news of the week. I've got some good ones today. Newsflash. So the first thing is something that I'm sure Anna has already read about. The date for the Amazon Prime Day 2024 is obviously fixed. It says it will be on July 9th and July 10th. I heard some rumors saying that the deals might be available a bit longer than 48 hours, but some experts also expect a shortened Prime Day this year, so it might be closer to the 2 days area than in the years before. Any thoughts on that, Anna? Have you already heard about the Prime Day this year?
No, I actually haven't. So that the date is set. That's really great news.
Yeah, Malte Carson has found it. He always is good at picking up that these Amazon interners. So yeah. Right, so that was Amazon Prime Day. Another interesting bit of news that I stumbled upon is Shein. They are opening a pop-up store in Liverpool. How do we like that? Valerie, maybe?
Well, I would say, yeah, let's see if they can
we don't
prove
like it much.
that they are good in brick and mortar and that Europe is also open for it. I'm not sure.
Not sure either. Yeah. This is something that I hadn't expected, actually, that she would even consider going for a pop-up store. But
also the place for a pop-up store is quite unusual, I would say.
That's true.
I mean, usually we have pop-up stores in London, Paris, Berlin.
Yeah.
And Liverpool is really not a city for pop-up stores, I would say. But maybe in combination of Shein and their kind of customers, that could be a match. I'm not sure.
That might
I haven't been there,
That might
to be very honest.
Yeah, that might be the idea that, well, yeah. Let's have a look. Still have a look at that, what is happening there. Right. On the topic of internationalization, Otto will open its marketplace to European sellers starting next year. The Otto CEO, Mark Opelt, has announced this. Interesting, I think, because I also hear from the German market the seller onboarding in Germany has significantly lost traction since March. There's a lot less sellers being onboarded every day than before. So, it's still not really clear to me where Otto is going for with the marketplace, I must say. But asking our international guest, is the Otto marketplace something that you think international European brands might be interested to sell on and sellers?
Actually, I think we still struggle with getting sellers on to board, say, for example, Amazon. So I think Otto is fairly, at least for Swedish brands, it's fairly far down the list so far. So yeah, I think you guys are better versed in this area than I am.
This is because Otto is going specifically for sellers from other countries. So this is an interesting perspective if you say like, maybe next time.
Yeah, no, but seriously.
We call you.
No, but seriously, because we're gonna jump into that as well. Yeah. But Swedish brands in general are fairly reluctant to marketplaces. So I think, we're still struggling to get them on board Amazon.
Okay, right. Before you can talk about another marketplace. Interesting.
Exactly.
But I think it's quite clear that it's quite unclear what Otto is really wanting right now.
No, I have no idea. Really, I don't have any. Okay. Right. Anything else that I would like to talk about? Yeah, maybe just one thing, because I thought that was pretty neat. eBay has launched a new AI feature for its fashion categories in the UK and the US. It's called Shop the Look. It's an AI feature, as I said, and it puts together a carousel of items from different sellers on the marketplace based on the user's shopping history. And from what I could gain from the press release, it also puts together AI photos that display the complete look put together from these different items listed by different sellers. So that sounds pretty interesting, an interesting use for an AI feature for a marketplace. Valerie, what would you say?
I would say that's quite interesting. So especially in fashion, there's like so much editorial work to do and content to do. And if there's an AI solution which is really fitting,
that's always the thing,
then I would say, that's a great next step. And I would like to see more of that because it could also make it easier the way how brands sell their products. I would be super interested if they are doing mix and match with other brands and categories and competitors, because I could also imagine that, let me say, if there is like a brand selling on marketplace, deciding with like how they want to be sold and how they want to look like, and then they got matched with their competitor because the jeans is matching to their top. I'm not sure
if they like that.
If they are really shouting out and saying like, "Yeah, wow, that's great."
Okay,
I don't know yet. So
interesting point of view. Yeah, that's right. From a seller's perspective, this is very interesting, of course,
because,
and from the user as well. But
in the wholesale perspective, they are used to it because they sold their product, so they sold their right on like, okay, now are they responsible on selling the product, and they are also getting the money for it because we got already our money. But now if this is for seller products, I'm not so sure, because they're doing it also because they can decide with whom they want to sell it, where and how. And if they are now like, I'm not sure. I think there are like every different kinds of opinions about that, but I would say this might be a risk. Yeah.
Okay. Anna, would you like to add anything to that?
I think that's a super interesting point of view, because looking at the development of AI, it feels like everyone is testing right now. And what we've also seen on the Amazon side for sellers, where Amazon changes certain things on the listings and stuff, it's not always appreciated, not always great. So
Yeah, that's true.
Valerie, I can definitely see your point of view there.
Yeah, because then the IA gets the work and you don't have that much control over what it does. That's sort of the point of these features. Well, let's see. I like to see eBay doing new stuff, so I'm happy about that one. And another news that I saw on your LinkedIn feed, Anna, actually, I think you read the letter to the shareholders from Andy Jassy quite in depth. I didn't get so far because I'm lazy. So, what are your main takeaways from it?
Yeah, I mean, it is a long piece every year.
It's a long piece.
I even tried getting it into an AI to summarize, but they were like, no, it's too long. I was, oh, damn it, I need to read the entire piece then again. I thought it would have made my life easier because I tend to do these summaries every year. But what I thought was interesting here, of course, I mean, Amazon keeps on growing, but I also noticed the emphasis on Amazon still providing the broadest retail selection. I think it's interesting to see what they're underlining in these letters. And also that I thought that part was interesting because obviously Amazon is also feeling the pressure of other marketplaces. And then it was a lot of mentioning on improving shipping speed and how they're doing that part, because that's of course a competitive advantage for Amazon. What worries me maybe a little bit is like the lowering the cost to serve, because someone is going to pay that.
Yes,
at some point.
To pay for that. Yeah, that's what
exactly.
I thought as well.
That was a bit, I'd keep an eye on that. I also, Amazon advertising, of course, keeps on growing like crazy. And that's just something I think most companies or brands aren't quite aware of yet, how important that's going to be. And then, also that they stated that Amazon's last mile delivery capability is, roughly the size of UPS. That's also a pretty large.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah. So I feel like there's sort of, I don't know, the main focus here is how Amazon is truly becoming this ecosystem for brands to use, for pretty much any business to use. And I think that's very interesting. And of course, I mean, Gen AI always is something that people need to bring up.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, I mean, Amazon was a bit quiet at the beginning in that area, but I mean, they've been working with that for, I don't know how long.
Yeah,
so they apparently have they have a massive advantage. But now it feels like they're trying to broadcast that more widely.
Yeah, maybe because everyone's talking about it, and so they have to say, we've been doing this since forever. I remember that I think some 10 years ago, I was invited by Amazon in their AI facility in London, where they showed us the new AI features, then focusing on speech detection. So that was all leading up to Alexa and stuff. But they had been working there on so many different topics concerning AI already. So, I was also a bit surprised that they didn't go out with their AI ideas much more prominently before, but obviously now they do.
But I think also that's somehow usual for Amazon, right? They do often many things under, like, no one is able to talk about it. Or, I mean, as I was working also at Amazon, I think it was like 2013 till 15 or 16. Or 17, I don't know. But there were also like people also getting jobs for machine learning in Munich. So, I mean, this was already quite normal. I had no clue what they're doing, to be very honest. But they've been there already. And this is also what I think is like, Amazon is often working internally already on projects for years till they come out with it. Until they find it's now the right timing for us to do this.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it feels like this time around they were even slower than usual, perhaps, to sort of state, state to the market that we're already way ahead of you guys.
Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe they didn't want to show their cards. Right. So that were my news of the week. And I think now it's high time we should talk about internationalization.
Topic of the week.
Okay. So, and we'll start out in your home country, Anna, in Sweden, because as you said before, when we talked beforehand, before our recording, I first said to you that I would like to talk with you about the internationalization of the Nordics, because this is mostly how German brands that I talk to see the region, like as one conglomerate of maybe different, but by and large rather similar markets. But when the two of us talked, then you told me that isn't quite true, and that the different Nordic countries are very different e-commerce markets in and of themselves. Is that correct?
It is correct in a sense. I mean, of course, the culture is fairly similar, but, there's still different countries, which I find it, because, I mean, you see Swedish companies, when they go international, they go to Norway or Denmark. Yeah. So I think it's kind of hard to talk about the Nordics as a whole unit. So looking at from my perspective, I mean, I'm in Swedish e-commerce. I'm not in Danish e-commerce or Norwegian. And even before this podcast, I was like, oh gosh, I need to read up a bit on what's happening in Norway, what's happening in Denmark, and not even mentioning Finland, which is a completely different language as well. So I think maybe that's the first point to notice, like you can't really see the Nordics as a whole. Because you need to look at the countries independently. And also, I mean, we do have different languages. Yes, Norwegian, I can understand most of it, depending on where they're from. But Danish, gosh, my best friend is Danish and we speak English.
See, it's interesting, and also I think from a marketplace business perspective, it's always a different story from each country, because I read up as well for our podcast, and I realized that while Sweden is the biggest online or e-commerce market in the Nordic area, with around about I think $13.5 billion online sales in 2023, and 8 million online shoppers, which is quite a lot in a population of I think 11 or something. But if you put together the turnover of the 5 biggest marketplaces, I'm referring to numbers of Statista here, and I put together like Amazon and Tradera and Zalando and MediaMarkt and eBay, because these were the 5 that Statista is telling me are the biggest ones. And if you put together their turnover in Sweden, then they make up less than 25% of the Swedish e-commerce turnover as a whole. So that's interesting. Why is, in an economy that is obviously so online prone as Sweden is, why are marketplaces not that important?
I think that's, you just mentioned the reason why, because we're so well established e-commerce wise that there really hasn't been a need for marketplaces earlier in Sweden, because Swedish e-commerce took off fairly early on, and Swedish e-commerce stores are, they're good. They're really good at what they're doing. I mean, we have fast shipping, you have same day delivery or next day delivery, and lots of those things that marketplaces have sort of as a part of their offering. And if you look at Amazon, I mean, we have fast and reliable shipping, and you have low prices, but you also have the assortment. And I think the assortment is the place where marketplaces come in to play on the Swedish market now, but they're late to the game.
They are. And Amazon too, actually. I mean, when did Amazon SE start? A few years ago.
No, a little bit over 3.5 years ago, so October in 2020. And that was late. That was really late. But it was also very obvious when Amazon came, because they launched in Sweden with, I think, if it was like over 150 million products from day one. And I think it was very clear that Amazon was very well aware of the fact that, okay, we're a marketplace, we have the shipping, we have the low prices, but everyone else in Sweden's e-commerce system already has that. So what we can bring is basically the assortment. So having lots and lots and lots of products, because in Sweden we haven't really had that. We had it for, second-hand products, like you mentioned Tradera. We also have Blocket. And then we have a few marketplaces like CDON, who merged with Fyndiq. But other than that, the marketplace business hasn't been big at all in Sweden. You have big retailers that offer loads of products.
Where do you shop actually then? Where does the Swedish shop online?
Yeah, so I mean, they're coming onto Amazon as well. But in general, if you need baby products, you go to a baby shop, or you go to some sort of or jewelry room, or all the entire baby e-commerce market in Sweden is having a really tough time right now. But it used to be that you go to that place for baby products, and then you go to a place like Apotea for pharmacy goods, or you go to Elgiganten or NetOnNet if you want to buy home electronics. So Swedish consumers are used to going to different e-commerce shops depending on what kind of product they're looking for.
So there has been like one big leader in each category that was sort of the main address to go to?
Well, not one big leader, but I would say mostly several that are really good. And then it depends a bit on, which one do I prefer? And for home electronics, for example, a lot of them have a physical presence as well that's fairly strong. So you take that physical presence and then you have it online as well. And that sort of creates, I guess, more of a sense of security for the consumers as well. You know that if you buy your home electronics from, say, for example, Elgiganten, you can also go into a physical shop if there's a problem or something. So.
In Central Europe, it has developed in the last years that strong retailers like MediaMarkt or Decathlon or whatever sooner or later open their strong online presence for third-party sellers. So why has this marketplaceization, whatever you want to call it, not happened in Sweden? I mean, for example, Elgiganten could have opened their own marketplace, of course.
And they are opening up all over Sweden now.
Oh, they are.
So we're late on the marketplace train, but we're getting on it. I think I even wrote a piece for Market.se on that maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, that we can see it happening now in Sweden. And I think that's also partly due to the development we're seeing in the rest of the world. Okay. So a lot of big Swedish online shops are now opening up to have their own marketplace. But then the question is, in the long run, I think, like, how many marketplaces can we have?
Yeah, and how would they fare against Amazon SE, who are now in their third year? So how is Amazon SE doing at the moment?
I think it's doing better than most people expect it to. So I bet you also heard that Amazon.se, the launch, probably was one of the worst launches Amazon has made. From the public point of view. I mean,
I think apart from Amazon PL, I think that was even worse. But apart from that, I think Amazon SE wasn't that good. Yeah.
No, it wasn't brilliant. I mean, the translations were, completely off for many words. So, but at the same time, it wasn't that different from any other launch that Amazon's ever made. They go in with a somewhat ready product, and then they learn from the market, and then they make it better. But we can still see that it's growing. It's growing quickly. I think the last public figures I saw was around 2 million users, monthly users on Amazon.se, which is a fairly big chunk of
again 8 million online shoppers total, so that is quite a big chunk. Yes.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, we don't know exactly what those 2 million monthly users mean. That wasn't entirely specified, but we can see that the traffic is growing. So I think Amazon.se is growing, and that's just what was expected, really. What I think they still struggle a bit with is getting Swedish brands on board. Because since we have such a well-developed e-commerce sector in Sweden, a lot of Swedish brands already have, they have their own e-commerce shop, or they're really well established there. So I think they don't see the benefits of a marketplace in general.
Or would you also say that Swedish brands are not yet educated in marketplace business? So do they sell more on international marketplaces because they're in Sweden none? Or would you rather say that even though that, or especially due to the case that they don't know really marketplaces, that they are also not used to sell on online marketplaces?
I would definitely say the latter there, that they're not used to selling on marketplaces. I mean, of course, you have some of the big brands that have been active on, say, for example, Amazon for a long time, but they're few in Sweden, which is a problem. Like, say, for example, for our agency, it's a lot about education, and it's a lot about getting brands to see why they need to be on a marketplace as well. Because, I mean, if we look around globally, and you two know this more than anyone, that marketplaces are basically everywhere now. So you need to get a good understanding of it. And I also always say that, it's probably the easiest way to sell internationally is to go via a marketplace like Amazon, for example.
Yeah, definitely. And what I also see is that I sometimes have brands as clients with their German headquarter, with their German subsidiary, and they have a headquarter in Sweden. And for example, they want to grow in the marketplace business in Germany because it's quite huge here, right? And then they need to speak with the headquarter, and then Sweden is like, yeah, well, why do we need this? And
we
they
need
are like,
marketplaces.
oh no, that's really. I had some of those cases already. So yeah.
I can totally understand that, because I mean, I've been out in Sweden speaking about like Amazon and trying to get Swedish companies to understand the value of marketplaces, like I think 2018, and I still need to keep it almost on the same basic level as back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can feel that it's getting tired also sometimes, right? I mean, it's just like my personal thing, maybe. Maybe it's just my personal thing, but...
No, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Okay. It's not just mine.
No, definitely not.
It's not you.
No.
You think like, I talk about this, the same things I talk about 5 years, so I don't have the feeling that anything's changed.
No, and I've been for the last 3 years at least been like, okay, but this year it's happening now. And then
this
like,
year I can
nah.
tell another story. No. Okay, back to the roots. Okay, back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I find it strange. For me, it's because it is just, another sales channel. People, at least here in Sweden, they see it as such an enormous strategic decision whether or not to offer the products on a marketplace. So it goes like on and on. It goes up to the board of directors, and then it goes up to on the ownership level, and then it goes back down to the board of directors, and then back up again. And it's just, I don't know. And to me, it's just like, just another place for you to sell your products. It's nothing more, nothing less.
But is this struggle only true for starting the brands on Amazon, or are the platforms that are now emerging that you talked about, like the marketplace of Gigante and the others, are they having the same problems?
I wouldn't dare to say if they have or not, because it's still fairly early stages.
Okay. Would be interesting because they have already the relationships to the brands, of course.
Yeah, and they probably have an easier way of getting them on board. That would be my guess, at least, because I think it's important to remember as well that at least in Sweden, Amazon has been getting poor press for, I don't know how many years. And, it's this giant American company coming to dominate the entire e-commerce sector in Sweden. And it's just been a lot of negative things leading up to Amazon's launch in Sweden. So I think that they're working against that as well. And it's also, sorry, I was just about to say, it's also, I think, too little focus on the internationalization part of it. So to how you can use marketplaces as a way to go international.
Let's turn the tables here for a while because as we have many listeners from the DACH region, but also other European countries, if they want to attack the Swedish market, if they want to sell there, so should they go with Amazon SE, or is that not the best place to start to convince Swedish customers of your product?
I think it is actually a good place to start still. You won't get return on investment instantly on being on Amazon.se, but it's a fairly easy way to start testing out the market. And since Swedish brands are fairly slow on getting on board there, if you come, say, for example, a German brand, you already have an Amazon presence established, you have your reviews, you have everything. It'll be pretty easy for you to excel on Amazon.se. So I would definitely use that to sort of as an entry point. And then I would also look at, okay, my products, like in which category am I? And where would it make sense for my products to show? So maybe you need to have a look at, okay, which retailers are interesting for my kind of product. And also remembering that the sort of the influencer marketing is pretty big in Sweden. So I would also look at that if I plan on entering Sweden. I would look at, okay, are there any influencers that I should at least be aware of? Are there anyone that I can, collaborate with? How do I do this in the best possible way? So I think, yes, Amazon is an easy way to test it out fairly inexpensively, I'd say. But I would definitely look at a bigger picture.
Yeah, very interesting. It's like Amazon is a starting point of your international adventure in Sweden, but definitely not the finishing line.
No, and also depending on what kind of products you have, like I would also look at, okay, like maybe not judge it entirely on how you perform on Amazon, since Amazon is still like in early stages in Sweden. So, but I think it would be an easy way to get in there, and then but find other channels as well.
Right. As you read up on the other Nordic areas as well, let's talk about those a bit. Maybe from your Swedish standpoint. So how do other Nordic markets, e-commerce markets, differ from what we just said about Sweden? It's the same story in Norway with marketplaces being in the backseat, or in Denmark?
That's my picture of it as well, like marketplaces still being in the backseat. And I don't know if that's for similar reasons to why it's been like that in Sweden. I mean, but it's kind of interesting because I think Zalando has a pretty strong grip in Denmark as well. You guys know this better than me.
Yeah, they do.
But that's, I think that's kind of interesting. And I mean, Zalando is also big in Sweden. But I think it is like, it's fairly well developed. Like the picture I have is that, say, for example, in Norway, it's even like they're not as developed as the Swedish market is. So it'll be interesting to see if the marketplaces, if they can take a bigger grip in Norway than in Sweden instantly. So, yeah.
Yeah, but not much happening there so far.
No.
Valerie, maybe you can add a bit about the Nordics of Zalando there?
Well, overall, I would say the Nordics. I mean, we starting from Germany. We have Benelux, which is like quite good in e-commerce, and then the Scandinavians. They are also pretty good. So the thing is, with Norway, we have, but correct me if I'm wrong, we have some other issues in regards different. Currency and also due to other shipment laws.
Not being part of the European Union.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the big thing with Norway. But with all the others, it's also a growing part for Zalando, for example. So I would sometimes say that even the Nordics are more important than the Southern European people or countries.
For fashion here and for Zalando,
it's obviously depending on the brand, and I don't like this, like, it's dependent on, but overall, the Scandis, they are often underrated and better performing than you might think, because I also think that there is like maybe not that big offer yet they would wish to.
Yeah.
And if brands are offering there, it's like, great. Finally, we have one,
So would you say it's a bit, you get the not first mover advantage, but an early mover advantage still in the Nordics?
Yeah, I could guess so. Yeah. And also, I mean, if you sell on Zalando, for example, you sell in wholesale already on 26 countries, but it's also easy if you sell on marketplaces to go on in the Scandinavian markets, because they have also different support and fulfillment, etc. to go there. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. I do have to look at the time, but before we finish, I still wanted to talk to Anna about some other may be interesting, especially Amazon marketplaces, because you have been looking up other countries as well that European sellers and brands might not consider in their first place. I think Japan is one of your favorites, isn't it?
It is one of my favorites. And it's really hard to get brands to understand that.
Yeah.
No, because my take on it is like Amazon Japan, it looks so foreign, so that a lot of people back off just because it looks foreign. Whilst it's basically, you know, dealing with marketplaces, if you know one marketplace in one country, you know how to work it in other countries as well.
Yeah.
So I think Amazon Japan is a really big market for Amazon. So I think that
there's the third biggest country for Amazon, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think like it's a lot of untapped opportunities there, because if we compare also population-wise, Japan is fairly big.
Yeah, and very far considering e-commerce market share too. Yeah. So there's a lot to be gained there. So what do you think? What categories, what kind of brands are something that should look out Amazon Japan?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, if you have anything that's geared towards a population that's a bit elderly, I think that's a good idea for Japan as well. Because, I mean, if you look at demographics, an aging population. So I think I read somewhere that diapers for elderly are more common than for babies these days.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I read it somewhere. And I think, but also, I mean, we had a great experience in highlighting that our products came like, you know, from a Nordic brand. That was we thought that was very valuable when we were in Japan. So I think like having a made in Germany, for example, if you have products that are made in Germany, I think that could be interesting to look at. Okay, does Germany have the same kind of positive sound in Japan as we experienced that, saying that it was a Scandinavian brand had?
But Anna, how is it about language and prices and currencies and shipment? I mean, that's like sounds like that's like was my thought was like, oh, that sounds all pretty complex.
Pain.
It is of course pretty complex, but then look at it. Okay, so maybe made in Germany has more difficulties when it comes to that, but maybe it's designed in Germany and made in China, like a lot of other products these days. Then shipping wise, it's actually a bit fairly close. Getting things over to Japan. And then, I mean, yes, of course, currency is, but all those things have pretty good solutions these days, I would say. I mean, when we started off, that was I think we entered Japan in 2014. That was a different game back then, because you didn't really have currency converters the same way. And it was, it was a lot more admin to be dealt with, but I think
it's getting easier. I mean,
I think so, and also, you know, there are a lot more service providers that are actively focusing on Japan. It's easier to find, like, you know, keywords and stuff like that. We didn't have that back then, so I think it's not necessarily more difficult than any other market. But then I would always look at, okay, what's the potential here? And I think sometimes it's worth maybe going through something that's a bit more of a hassle. Because then automatically you'll remove a ton of the competition.
Yeah, true.
Interesting. As we're talking about markets that people don't think about because of the pain, what about the other more, let's say, exotic Amazon marketplaces, like, I don't know, Brazil or Australia or South Africa, or you have them. Is that something that European brands should consider?
I definitely think you should consider it. But as always, I think, I mean, it's always important to actually look at the markets from sort of a market evaluation point of view. It's not the most fun thing to do that proper research beforehand, but I would definitely recommend doing the research and see, okay, is there actually a demand for my products here? What's the competition like? Where would it make sense for me to sell my products? Because I think if you do that and you take it like a wider scope of things, you're going to find a lot of opportunities that you would otherwise miss. If you do like most Swedish brands, they look at Denmark or Norway. And I'm always like, why? Why would you do that? Like, it's so much
Start
work.
out in the smallest countries
Yes,
that you
exactly.
have in Europe. Yeah.
It's such hard
e-commerce
work.
turnover-wise.
Exactly. And it's just, because you basically, regardless of which country you're choosing, you need to do the same work. You need to do the translations. You need to make sure that your product is following all the regulations. You have to deal, well, perhaps not as much in Europe, but still like some import-export issues. And you need to make sure you have the right customer service set up. And so sometimes I'm just like, why would you do that just to get hold of another few millions when you can do the same work and get access to, 100 million?
Okay, so going back to your talk in Las Vegas, where you talked about the most popular ways to fuck up internationalization, is that the main thing, to do too little research before you start?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the points. So our first screw up is really failing to plan, like that you don't make that plan. And also, we also talked about going for the easy option, or the option that seems easy. As in a way then of Swedish brands that you look at, Norway or Denmark, because they feel fairly similar to Sweden. But then you have way less potential there than if you go for a market like Japan, for example, that seems a lot trickier. So I think that's definitely, that was two of our main points. And then we talked a lot about also this, like, how easy it is to miss out on regulatory issues and underestimating the complexity of taxes and things like that. Because sometimes, as an entrepreneur or a brand, you just want to sell more. But it can become fairly expensive if you don't do that kind of a little bit perhaps more boring research as well. And then we also talked a lot about, you have to actually still, in these days of AI, localize your content properly and make sure that you have the right team. I think that's very important, because I like to see customer service as, it's something that's invaluable to your brand, because a lot of people look at it as only as an expense. You need to recruit people to look after your customers in another country, and then you're like, oh no, I'll just use, AI or translation tools. But I think that it's really valuable to have someone who actually understands the customers and can talk to them, and truly, you gain so much invaluable insights from that. So take on the perspective as their, an asset to your company instead of an expense. I'm very passionate about that, because that's what's going to make the difference between, a 3.5 star average and a 4.8 star average.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, one of the things that most brands are, shying away from the most, from what I hear, is like, customer service in the language in each country, and like, sounds expensive. It is, but well worth it, you would say?
It's an investment, I'd say, if you really want to make a success. And one of the, my best hacks there is to try and find exchange students that you can work with. Because often you may not need someone working full time when you enter a new market. And then if you have, an exchange student who's actually from that country and speak the language, then you often get, some really bright people who are often happy to work part-time for you. And it's more interesting than maybe working in just a grocery shop or something to fund your studies.
Yeah. Recalling my own exchange student days, I would absolutely agree. I would have so much done that kind of job. I would have been very, very thankful to do it, I can tell you.
Definitely.
Apart from the other things that I had to do to, provide a living when I was still studying abroad. So
what have you done then?
I counted cars in a very, very rainy crossroads in Glasgow. Stood there like the whole day with a ticking device in my hand, and whenever the red light turned red, then I had to count how many cars stood there. I did that like for I think 4 days. They carried all of us very desperate exchange students by bus over, because I studied in Edinburgh, and they carried us over to Glasgow, and we stood there on a rainy day, and a rainy Scottish day, on the crossroads and counted cars. And then you came back and you counted your very, very meager result for that day. So yes, I would have been very happy to do customer service in a warm inside area somewhere. The things you do for education.
I work as a waitress in a very typical Bavarian restaurant in a dirndl and served all the things you think about. Yeah.
Okay, good tips though, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Blonde young girl in a dinner works for tips.
Works very well
True
for tips,
story.
I think. All right. Okay, so thanks, Anna, for our little trip together to Sweden and anywhere else in the world. I hope you liked the journey just as much as we did. And let us know if you consider Sweden or other Nordic countries, or maybe even Japan, for your future marketplace business. I'll put up a small questionnaire which you can answer via your podcast app, or you can write us about your experiences on LinkedIn. We would be very interested to know.
Yeah, and if you liked listening to us today, you could make us very happy by following us and rating our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to us. And of course, by tuning in again next time. Next week's episode is in German. We talk about...
Yeah, there we won't have a guest there, but we will give you some exclusive insights about what we're working on at Marketplace Universe at the moment, because there's happening a lot in the background.
Yeah. So, and in 2 weeks' time, you can listen to the two of us talking in English about internationalization again. Okay. Wow. And this time, where do we go? Warmer fields?
Yes, definitely warmer fields, United Arabian Emirates, UAE. We have our guest Mareike Schubert with us, who is very into this market and can tell us all about how to enter it and how to do that. I'm really interested to know that.
And there's a great bridge, because I got to know her because of the former Amazon Sweden head of marketplace who introduced me to Mareike.
Okay.
So there's the connection again. Love it. That's the reason why I love our industry.
The world is a village.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So be sure to tune in, and thank you again, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
You listen to Let's Talk Marketplace,
The Marketplace podcast with Ingrid Lammer and Valerie Dichtel.